The December wind howled through Seattle like a wounded animal, carrying snowflakes so thick they seemed to erase the world one layer at a time. Beckett Thorne stood beneath the amber glow of a street lamp outside Bellamy's restaurant, his leather jacket doing little against the bitter cold that seeped into his bones. In his right hand, he clutched a single crimson rose, its petals still perfect despite the harsh weather. He had purchased it 3 hours earlier, when hope still burned bright in his chest. 47 minutes of waiting. That was how long he had been standing there, watching couples hurry past into the warmth, watching families laugh behind frosted windows while he remained outside, alone, waiting for someone who would never come. Her name was Odette. 3 weeks of messages, video calls, and late night conversations had made him believe that loneliness might finally be ending. She had promised to meet him here at 8 o'clock. At 8:15, he texted. At 8:30, he called. At 8:47, two words appeared on his screen. Rain check. No explanation. No real apology. Just two cold words that erased 3 weeks of careful hope. Through Bellamy's frosted windows, Beckett could see what he was missing. A couple leaned across a candlelit table, faces glowing with connection. An elderly man kissed his wife's hand, 50 years of love compressed into that single gesture. A family celebrated something joyful, their laughter steaming up the glass. The world inside was alive and warm, and here he stood, outside in the freezing night, holding a rose meant for someone who had decided he was not worth showing up for. Beckett Thorne was 34 years old. Orphaned at 7 when his parents died in a car accident, he had been raised by his grandmother Rosalind in her small house in Ballard. She had given him her old camera when he turned 12, and that gift had changed everything. Through its viewfinder, he learned to capture moments of beauty, to find stories in strangers' faces, to believe the world was worth documenting. He had traveled everywhere, photographed landscapes that made people weep, built a career from finding light where others saw shadows. Then grandmother Rosalind got sick, Alzheimer's. The medical bills piled up faster than he could pay them. He sold his cameras, gave up assignments, took a job in data entry because it paid steadily and let him be there when she needed him. She died 18 months ago, her hand in his, her eyes finally peaceful. Her last words were the same ones she had repeated throughout his childhood. What we give to others never truly leaves us, Beckett. It circles back when we need it most. He had not picked up a camera since, had not believed in much of anything, just existing rather than living, waiting for something he could not name. Now here he was, standing in the snow with a wilting rose, ready to give up entirely. He turned toward a trash can, lifted the lid, prepared to throw away the last remnant of his foolish optimism, and then he heard it, a sound that cut through the howling wind. Not loud, dramatic crying, but something far worse. The quiet, desperate weeping of a child who had run out of strength to cry any louder. Beckett froze, the rose still suspended over the trash. The sound came from Kessler Park at the end of the block. Through the curtain of falling snow, he made out two figures on a bench near the old oak tree, one larger, one impossibly small, huddled together against the cold. Every instinct said, walk away. He had his own problems, his own broken heart to nurse, but the child kept crying. That thin, exhausted sound that spoke of hours of cold, of hunger, of fear. Grandmother Rosalind's voice echoed in his mind. What we give to others never truly leaves us. He closed the trash can with the rose still in his hand and walked toward the bench. Details emerged from darkness like a photograph developing. A woman, late 20s, wearing a jacket far too thin for this weather. Dark hair plastered to her face with melted snow. Her entire body shook with dangerous tremors. In her arms, wrapped in mismatched layers of clothing, was a little girl, maybe 5 years old, face pale, lips turning blue. She was the one crying, though the sound had faded to occasional whimpers punctuated by a wet, rattling cough. The woman looked up as Beckett approached. Her reaction was immediate. She pulled the child closer, eyes wide with wariness. We are not bothering anyone. We will move. I just needed a minute. Beckett stopped a few feet away, keeping his distance. Your daughter sounds sick. There is a warm restaurant right there. Let me buy you both something hot. The woman shook her head weakly. We do not need charity. The little girl coughed violently, her whole body shaking. The woman's careful composure crumbled, revealing devastation beneath. Beckett stepped closer, voice gentle. It is not charity. Just soup. Something warm for her. Please. The woman looked at her daughter. The child's eyes were closed, breathing labored. Her expression collapsed like a wall held too long against too much weight, then rebuilt itself into surrender. She nodded once and let Beckett help her stand. Her legs were unsteady. She had probably been sitting there for hours. Her skin was ice cold, and she swayed as she walked, arms never loosening their grip on the child. Inside Bellamy's, the warmth hit them like a physical force. The woman nearly collapsed. Beckett guided her to a corner booth, helped her sit while she clutched her daughter. He ordered quickly. Soup, bread, hot chocolate, coffee, whatever comes fastest. The woman had not spoken. She sat with her daughter in her lap, eyes darting around as if expecting to be thrown out. Beckett removed his jacket and offered it. She stared at it, pride warring with need, then wrapped it around her daughter. I am Beckett Thorne. She studied his face like a map when lost. Serafina, Sarah, and this is Ellery, Ellie. The food arrived quickly. Steam rose from the bowls. The hot chocolate came with whipped cream melting on top. Ellie stirred at the smell, her eyes opened, focused on the mug. She looked at her mother with desperate hope. Is this for me, Mommy? Sarah nodded, blinking back tears. Ellie reached for the mug with both hands, took a small sip, and made a sound almost like a sob. Then she smiled. Weak, trembling, but real. It is warm, Mommy. It is so warm. Sarah began to cry, silent tears streaming down her face as she watched her daughter drink hot chocolate like it was the greatest gift ever given. Beckett sat across from them, forgotten rose still in hand, feeling something frozen for 18 months beginning to thaw. When was the last time she had something warm? Sarah looked at him, voice barely a whisper. A few days, maybe. I lost track. The words hit like a physical blow. A few days. This child had not had warm food in days. In December, what happened? Sarah shook her head. You do not want my story. You should go home. Beckett looked at the rose, then back at her. I was supposed to meet someone tonight. She did not show. I have nowhere to be. So if you want to talk, I have time, and I am not leaving until you both have somewhere safe tonight. Something flickered in Sarah's eyes. Suspicion, or the desperate desire to trust after trusting had hurt her too many times. Ellie had fallen asleep, exhausted. Sarah watched her, and her resistance collapsed. The words spilled out like water through a broken dam. 5 years ago, Sarah was a nurse at Eastbrook Community Clinic, serving low-income families in South Seattle. She loved the work. Then she got pregnant. The father, Garrett, left $200 on the kitchen table with a note that said sorry. She never saw him again. She raised Ellie alone, working double shifts, barely sleeping, pouring everything into giving her daughter a good life. It was exhausting, but she managed. 8 months ago, Eastbrook closed suddenly. Budget cuts, they said. 47 employees laid off. Thousands of patients abandoned. Sarah applied everywhere. Every application rejected. Finally, a hiring manager told her the truth. Her record was flagged, terminated for performance issues. But she had not been fired for performance. She had been an excellent nurse. She was laid off when the clinic closed. Someone had falsified her records. She knew why. 3 weeks before closure, working late, she had seen Eastbrook's director, Dominic Crane, transferring clinic funds to his personal accounts, embezzlement on a massive scale. She had been too frightened to report it. She had a child, bills, a life depending on steady income. She kept quiet, but another nurse, Philippa Morrison, had filed an anonymous complaint. 3 days later, the clinic closed. Philippa disappeared without a trace. Every nurse who worked night shifts during those weeks had records flagged, terminated for cause, unhirable, silenced. Sarah tried fighting. Lawyers wanted money she did not have. Journalists needed more evidence. Dominic Crane had money, connections, powerful friends. Every door closed without work. Bills piled up. Savings vanished. Credit cards maxed out. Eviction notice arrived. 2 weeks ago, she was thrown out, spent her last money on a motel room. But the money ran out, shelters were full, and tonight she found herself on a bench in the snow, trying to figure out how to keep a 5-year-old warm through a December night with nothing but body heat. I called the shelter, Sarah said hollowly. Full everywhere. They said try tomorrow, but I do not know how to keep her warm until tomorrow. She pressed her hand against her mouth, holding back sobs. Beckett sat in silence. An hour ago, he felt sorry for himself because a stranger stood him up for dinner. His problem seemed laughably small now. He thought about his grandmother, about all the times she stopped to help strangers, about the philosophy he had abandoned after she died. He pulled out his phone and found Thatcher Reeves in his contacts. College roommate, still a friend, now in property management. He made the call. Thatcher answered groggily. "Beck, it is almost 11. What is going on?" "There is a woman with a 5-year-old daughter sitting across from me. They have been on the street for 2 weeks. Shelters are full. I need a place for them tonight." Silence, then a sigh. "I have a studio in Beacon Hill. Tenant just left. Furnished, heated. They can stay rent-free the first month. I will cover whatever comes after. Beck, who is she to you?" Beckett looked at Sarah, at Ellie sleeping in her arms. "I do not know yet, but I cannot walk away." Thatcher's voice softened. "I will meet you there in an hour with keys. And Beck, it is good hearing you sound like yourself again." The drive to Beacon Hill took 20 minutes through transformed streets. Sarah sat in the passenger seat, Ellie in her arms, staring at the snow like she could not believe this was real. The apartment was small but clean. Murphy bed, tiny kitchenette, radiator filling the space with warmth. Sarah stood in the doorway, unable to move. "I cannot accept this. You do not know me. Why would you do this?" Beckett stayed in the hallway, giving her space. "You are a mother who has been fighting alone too long. Your daughter needs a warm place to sleep. Tomorrow we figure out the rest. Tonight, just rest." Ellie stirred, eyes opening slightly. "Mommy, is this our new house?" The question undid Sarah completely. She pressed her face against her daughter's hair and wept. Beckett made a quick trip to a corner store, returned with groceries, bread, milk, eggs, fruit, left them on the counter without ceremony. When he prepared to leave, Ellie wriggled free and ran to him. She wrapped small arms around his legs in a fierce hug. "Thank you for being nice to us, mister." Beckett knelt to her level, throat tight. "You are welcome, Ellie." She studied his face with unfiltered curiosity. "Why were you standing in the snow looking sad?" He thought about the rose still in his pocket, about Odette, about all the ways tonight could have gone differently. "I was waiting for someone, but I think maybe I was supposed to find you instead." Ellie nodded solemnly. "Mommy says the stars send us people when we need them. Maybe the stars sent you." Sarah walked him to the door, eyes red but clearer now. "I do not know how to thank you. People do not help strangers like this. There is always a catch." Beckett thought about his grandmother. "There is no catch. My grandmother raised me to believe helping others is how we find meaning. I stopped believing that after she died. But tonight, hearing your daughter cry, I remembered who I am supposed to be." He left his phone number on paper, told her to call if they needed anything, and walked back into the snow. The storm had intensified, streets nearly empty, but Beckett did not feel cold anymore. For the first time in 18 months, he felt warm from the inside out. At home, he pulled the rose from his pocket, bent, petals torn, no longer perfect, but he did not feel rejection anymore. He felt gratitude. If Odette had shown up, he would have been inside that restaurant all evening, oblivious to the woman and child freezing in the park. He would have missed everything. He pressed one petal between the pages of his grandmother's favorite book and fell asleep without dreaming of loss. The weeks that followed found unexpected rhythm. Beckett stopped by every few days with groceries or small things. A warm coat for Ellie, art supplies when he noticed her drawing on napkins, a space heater when the radiator struggled. Sarah found part-time work at Flour and Frost, a bakery 2 blocks away. The owner, Hazel Brennan, did not care about employment records. She cared whether someone worked hard. Sarah did. It was not nursing, but it was income and a start. Ellie transformed before their eyes. The pale, frightened child became something brighter. She laughed easily, chattered constantly, developed an obsession with drawing. One evening, while Sarah worked late, Beckett stayed with Ellie. She sat drawing with fierce concentration. "What are you making?" "A picture of us, you, Mommy, and me, and a star. That is your grandma watching from heaven." Beckett felt his breath catch. "How do you know about my grandma? Mommy told me you miss her." "I miss my grandma too. Never met her, but Mommy says people we love become stars so they can always see us." Beckett looked at the drawing. 3 stick figures beneath a yellow star. Simple, childish, beautiful. "Can I take a picture of it?" Ellie brightened. "You take pictures?" "I used to." Stopped for a while. "But I think I want to start again." That weekend, he dug his camera from the closet, cleaned it, loaded film, took it walking through the city. Through the viewfinder, Seattle looked different. Winter light on wet streets, a child laughing in a doorway, an elderly couple sharing an umbrella. beauty everywhere, waiting to be captured. He showed the photographs to Ellie, who studied each one seriously. This is my favorite. The light looks like honey. Beckett stared at her. That is exactly what I thought when I took it, Ellie shrugged. Some things are obvious when you pay attention. The fragile piece shattered on a Tuesday in early February. Sarah was working at Flower and Frost when a man walked in. She recognized him instantly. Dominic Crane, 50 years old, silver hair, expensive suit, smile like a knife. He ordered coffee, made small talk with Mrs. Brennan, but his eyes kept drifting to Sarah, making sure she knew he had found her. When Mrs. Brennan stepped into the back, Dominic approached. Seraphina Vance, heard you were rebuilding. How fortunate. Sarah's hands trembled. What do you want? Just ensuring we understand each other. You saw nothing at Eastbrook. You know nothing. You say nothing. In return, I make that mark on your record disappear. You could nurse again. And if I refuse? Dominic's smile stayed, but something cold entered his eyes. You have a daughter, Ellery, 5 years old, attends after school at Beacon Hill Community Center, gets picked up at 5:30. Sarah felt blood drain from her face. He knew Ellie's schedule. He was threatening her child. He placed an envelope on the counter. $15,000. Enough to start over far from Seattle. Think about it. He walked out. Sarah shook so badly she gripped the counter to stay standing. That night she told Beckett everything. The visit, the threats, the money she had not touched. Beckett's jaw tightened. We go to police. With what? He bought coffee. My word against his. Then we find proof. Find others he hurt. You do not understand. He has money, lawyers, friends in high places. I have nothing. You have me. That is not enough. He will destroy us. A small voice interrupted from the doorway. Mommy, is the bad man going to hurt us? Ellie stood there in pajamas, face pale, eyes too knowing for 5 years old. Sarah rushed to hold her. No, baby, no one will hurt us. But over Ellie's shoulder, her eyes met Beckett's. They both knew promises might not be enough. Ellie looked at Beckett with serious expression. Mr. Beckett, Mommy says you took pictures of beautiful things. Can you take pictures of the bad man doing bad things? Then everyone will know, and he cannot hide. The simplicity hit Beckett like lightning. Evidence. They needed evidence. The investigation took 3 weeks. Beckett searched for information about Eastbrook, about Dominic Crane, about the closure. He found old articles, financial records, names of former employees. Most refused to talk. They had families, jobs, fear too deeply rooted. Then he found a name appearing repeatedly. Dr. Margot Sinclair, chief physician at Eastbrook, resigned 1 week after closure. He found her address in Magnolia. The house was modest, well-maintained. She answered his knock. Late 60s, silver hair, sharp eyes. Whatever you were selling, not interested. I am not selling anything. My name is Beckett Thorne. I am here about Eastbrook, about Dominic Crane, and about Seraphina Vance. Her expression changed immediately. The composure cracked, revealing something raw beneath. Come inside, quickly. In her living room filled with books and photographs, Dr. Sinclair sat across from him. I have waited 2 years for someone to ask these questions. You know what happened? Everything. I knew about embezzlement 6 months before closure. Gathered evidence, bank records, emails, meeting recordings. I was going to report him. What stopped you? My daughter, graduate school in California. Dominic made clear that accidents happen to young women far from home. He threatened your daughter. He threatened all of us. Some he paid off. Some he intimidated, some he destroyed like Seraphina. You still have evidence? Dr. Sinclair rose, walked to a bookshelf, removed a thick volume, pulled a flash drive from a hollowed section, kept it 2 years waiting for someone brave enough to use it. Beckett took the drive, feeling its weight beyond physical size. I will try to be that person. 2 days later, another piece fell into place. Beckett contacted Nadia Okonkwo, a journalist at the Seattle Tribune known for fearless reporting on healthcare disparities. They met at a coffee shop. Nadia was mid-40s with natural hair in an elegant updo and eyes that missed nothing. Beckett showed her everything. Financial records showing systematic theft, emails discussing cover-ups, meeting recordings leaving no doubt. Nadia studied the documents for an hour, expression growing grimmer. This is explosive. If authentic, Dominic Crane goes to prison, but I need someone on record. I will do it. They both turned. Sarah stood in the doorway, face pale but determined. I will tell my story, on camera, in court, whatever it takes. Nadia leaned forward. He will come after you harder than ever. He already took my career, my home, my dignity. The only thing left is truth. And I am done being afraid. 3 days before the story would run, Dominic made his move. Sarah arrived at Beacon Hill Community Center to pick up Ellie at 5:30. The staff member looked confused. "Your daughter left 20 minutes ago. A man came, said he was her uncle, knew all the right information. We assumed it was authorized." The world tilted beneath Sarah's feet. She had no brother. Ellie had no uncle. Her call to Beckett was barely coherent. He took her. Someone took Ellie. Beckett broke every speed limit getting there. Police were already present, asking questions with no answers. Man in his 40s, brown hair, nice suit, forgettable, gone. The wait was the longest hour of their lives. Sarah sat rocking, unable to speak. Beckett paced, calling everyone he knew. Then Sarah's phone rang. Unknown number. Her hands shook so badly she nearly dropped it. "Hello? Mommy?" Ellie's voice, small but calm. "Mommy, I am okay. The man said he was taking me for ice cream, but I remembered what you taught me. Safe grown-ups do not take children without asking mommies. When we passed a store with lots of people, I ran inside and told the lady I did not know the man. Police came. They are bringing me home." Sarah collapsed against Beckett, sobbing with relief. Ellie had remembered all those conversations about stranger danger, about trusting instincts. She had saved herself. An hour later, a police car brought Ellie home. She ran into her mother's arms. The man was in custody. Criminal record, assault, intimidation. When pressed, he folded. "Dominic Crane paid me. Wanted to scare the woman into leaving town. Was not supposed to hurt the kid. Just take her for a ride, drop her somewhere later." Enough. Witness intimidation, conspiracy to kidnap. Combined with financial evidence and emerging testimonies from other employees who finally found courage, it was more than enough. The story broke Sunday morning, front page. Clinic director embezzled millions while patients suffered. By Monday, State Attorney General opened investigation. By Wednesday, federal agents joined. By Friday, Dominic Crane was arrested at his Mercer Island home, led out in handcuffs past cameras and reporters. Trial came 6 months later. Sarah testified 3 hours, recounting everything witnessed and suffered. Voice never wavered. Eyes never left the jury. Dr. Sinclair testified unburdening secrets carried 2 years. Federal agents had located Philippa Morrison living under a different name in Arizona, terrified Dominic would find her. When she learned he was in custody, she flew to Seattle to testify. She and Sarah embraced in the courthouse hallway, 2 women who survived the same storm. The kidnapper testified against Dominic for reduced sentence, providing details about payments and instructions. Dominic Crane was convicted on 17 counts: embezzlement, fraud, witness tampering, conspiracy to kidnap. The judge sentenced him to 23 years. When verdict was read, Sarah sat in the gallery with Beckett on one side and Ellie on the other. She did not cry or celebrate, simply closed her eyes and breathed, finally setting down weight carried far too long. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed. Sarah ignored them all. She knelt before her daughter. "We did it, baby. The bad man cannot hurt anyone anymore." Ellie nodded, then looked at Beckett. "Mr. Beckett helped. The stars sent him to us." Beckett felt tears building behind his eyes. "I think you might be right." 1 year after the night in the snow, they returned to Kessler Park. Spring now, trees heavy with cherry blossoms, pink petals drifting like gentle snow. The bench where Beckett found them was still there, weathered but solid, witness to how much had changed. Sarah looked different, haunted shadows gone. She had regained her nursing license, was working at a new community clinic funded by settlement money, helping people again. Mrs. Brennan still saved them a table at Flour and Frost every Sunday, insisting family meant more than blood. She had closed the bakery for their engagement party, filling it with flowers, crying happy tears, watching the woman she took a chance on find happiness. Ellie had turned 6, taller, more confident, still obsessed with drawing, sketchbook everywhere. Beckett had changed too, camera around his neck again, back to photography, specializing in family portraits, capturing joy that reminded him why he loved the art. On his camera strap, embroidered in gold letters, one word: kindness. They sat on the bench watching cherry blossoms fall. Ellie pointed at the bench. "This is where you found us, right, Daddy Beck?" She had started calling him that 4 months ago after the engagement, her own creation. "That is right, Ellie Bug, where everything started." Sarah leaned against his shoulder, engagement ring catching spring light. "Do you ever think about that night? What if Odette had shown up?" Beckett reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet. Inside, protected by plastic, a single pressed rose petal. Faded, fragile, but still crimson. "I kept one petal. Everything else was ruined by cold, but this survived." Why? Because that is all it takes sometimes. One moment, one choice, one person deciding to show up instead of walk away. Everything else grows from that. Ellie looked up from her sketchbook. Daddy Beck, I think the lady who was supposed to meet you got lost. Maybe she did, but that is okay. If she came, you would not have heard me crying, would not have found us, and we would not have found you. She returned to drawing, matter settled. Sarah laughed quietly. Out of the mouths of babes. Beckett pulled them both closer, this family he never planned and could not imagine living without. My grandmother used to say, what we give to others never truly leaves us. It circles back when we need it most. I did not believe her after she died, but that December night, standing in snow with a wilting rose and broken heart, I made a choice, did not walk away, did not ignore the crying, and that choice gave me everything I never knew I was looking for. You, Ellie, a reason to pick up my camera again. Ellie held up her sketchbook. I finished. Look, 3 figures beneath cascading pink blossoms. Tall man with camera, woman with dark hair and warm smile, little girl holding both their hands, above them a single bright star. That is Grandma Rosalind, watching over us, making sure we stay together. Beckett took the sketchbook gently. Perfect, Ellie. Absolutely perfect, she beamed. Some things are obvious when you pay attention, like how we were supposed to find each other. Sarah smiled, pulling her daughter close. Where did you learn to be so wise? From Grandma Rosalind. She talks to me in dreams, says she is proud of Daddy Beck for finding us. Says he finally learned what she was teaching him. Beckett's throat tightened. What was that? Ellie looked at him with clear, knowing eyes. That love is not something we find by searching. It is something we make by choosing to stay when easier to leave, by choosing to help when easier to walk away. The words hung in spring air, simple and profound. Beckett looked at the rose petal in his wallet, the camera around his neck, the 2 people who transformed his life from something hollow into something whole. And a year ago, he stood in snow, holding a rose for a stranger who never came, ready to throw it away, ready to give up on hope and connection. Then he heard a child crying. One moment, one choice. Everything else grew from that. The crimson rose had wilted long ago, petals scattered to winter wind, but this single petal would remain forever, a reminder that beautiful things do not always go where planned. Sometimes they go exactly where needed, and sometimes the dates that matter most are not the ones scheduled in advance. They are the ones written by something wiser, delivered through snowstorms and tears, found on park benches when least expected, the ones that change everything, not because they lead to romance, but because they lead us back to ourselves, back to kindness, back to the truth that we are never alone as long as we show up for each other. That is the love that lasts forever. And it started with a crimson rose, a December night, and the courage to stop when it would have been easier to walk away.